So this is Robert White. I'm with the Jefferson County Political Activist. I'm also owner of Bob White Insurance Agency, and today I have Dr. Paul Jacobs with me. He's the candidate running for the 115th House seat for the GOP nomination.
Yep.
Welcome to you, Doc. Good to see you.
Thank you. Welcome. Welcome to you too. It's good to see you.
All right. So what we have today is a few questions. I've offered this to the other candidates, and so far nobody's made a commitment to sit down with me. It's very similar to what we did for the city races and the school board races. So I appreciate you being here. So let's start off with how about you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am Paul Jacobs. I have a number of offices, optometric offices down in Carbondale, Anna, Heron, and Marion. That was our main thing for the last 40 years. A mere 22 years ago, we started Banyaka Vineyard down in Alto Pass and Pomona. So we've been vested in the area heavily for many, many, many years. We want to be here. We don't want to leave here, and we'd like to make it where we can stay. But part of the problem we're having, though, is the taxes that my opponent Terry Bryant brought in last year. It's making it difficult for many people to stay, and that we want to stop.
Okay. You want to talk about your kids, grandkids?
Oh, the kids and grandkids. That's part of the problem that, when you start having them leave the area, it's getting rid of the family unit. We had one daughter that did move down to Florida, and when that happens, you don't see those grandkids, but 2 or 3 times maybe a year if you're lucky. If they come up and we go down, and they come up and we go down, maybe. But they lived a half a mile away from one of our offices before that, and they left. They're in rental properties, and they left for an area that they could afford to buy property and pay a tenth, a third, a quarter of the property taxes we have up here. I can't blame them. They're in their early 40s. So they've got a lot of years to work. So they're buying duplexes and quads and raw land and whatnot in Florida. Many people are doing it. We've got to stop it.
Okay. All right. So I guess this might be redundant, but tell us, what made you decide to run for this office?
We wouldn't even have this conversation had the 4th of July weekend not happened last year, but it did happen, and Terry and 15 of our Republicans voted for that tax increase that just put in this district, our district, it's $30 million that we're sending up to Springfield and Chicago. In Jefferson County, it's over $7 million that they're taken from here. With that in mind, and knowing that the people down here per capita only make $18,000, where are they going to get that extra $1,200 to send up there? We don't have the money to do that. It's going to add to, the biggest thing, even more important, is when those 15 voted that way, that allowed 10 Democrats to vote against it. And with that voting against it, if the Democrats were smart enough to vote against it, shouldn't they have seen something that it's not good? They also took $6 billion in their balanced budget. They borrowed $6 billion to balance the budget. Any of us that have a home, homemakers, dads, moms, we can all figure out that balanced budget, we don't go out and borrow and balance the budget. I mean, there are just certain business things that they just did not consider. And the consequences are going to be tremendous as we have more and more people leave our areas. It's fewer people to actually pay the taxes. So if you run all the taxpayers out, who's going to be here to pay the taxes? Eventually you have to quit doing that, and you have to reform. You have to reform in what you're paying.
Okay. So first question I have for you, sir. September of 2017, Governor Rauner signed into legislation HB 40, effectively expanding taxpayer-subsidized abortions. What is your position on this enacted legislation, and why?
The whole abortion issue is an extremely important issue. You're never going to convince a pro-choice person that they're wrong. You're never going to convince a pro-life person they're wrong. But I do think that there is some ground in the middle there where you're taking taxes that should not be used. You want to separate church and state, but you're taking good Christian, good Judeo-Christian, many, many people that don't want to do the abortions. They don't want to have their money used in the abortions, but you're going to pay state money all the way through. You're going to pay state money for that. State workers have the option, not just the public assistance people. Everybody that's involved with the state has that option to have an abortion, and that's not good, all the way to 9th month. So that gets into a big moral issue. But the biggest thing economically is how can you tax the people that don't want that to be paid for? And, the money that Terry got when she voted for the tax increase, much of that money is going to be used. So I don't know how you can claim to be pro-life if you have tax dollars that you've increased, and that money, much of that money is going to be used in abortions. I mean, that's not pro-life voting for that tax increase.
Okay. So next question is August 2017. Governor Rauner signed into legislation Senate Bill 31, known as the Trust Act, preventing police officers from stopping, arresting, searching, or detaining a person solely due to their immigration status. Some support the law, believing that law enforcement should be focused on criminal acts, while others state that this has made Illinois a sanctuary state. What is your position on this legislation and why?
Well, first, I think it's a very simple position. We don't want to be a sanctuary state. We don't want to violate federal law, and we're violating federal law. I believe it's awfully difficult for a police officer to do their job if they really can't even see the person that's in the car that happens to be speeding, and they stop them and they happen to be illegal. Is the police officer the one that's doing the wrong thing then? I mean, who's in the wrong, the police officer or the person that's here illegally? I have a very hard problem with that. And yes, I'd vote against it. I would have voted against it then, and I'd still vote against it.
Okay, very good. All right. In July of 2017, after 736 days of no budget, the House voted to override Governor Rauner's veto of the budget presented for approval. This budget included a permanent increase of 32% of the state income tax, but it also levied fees on taxing bodies using sales tax vehicles for their own revenue use. And that changed. They did a change in the motor fuel tax allocation of funds. The result of this is a higher income tax to the residents of Jefferson County, but it's also hurt the budgets of the city of Mount Vernon by approximately $250,000 per budget year. Same thing with Jefferson County for their budget; it's about $250,000 a year. Jefferson County Highway Department, $75,000 less motor fuel tax funds each year. These actions have hit this county pretty hard. What will you do to assist in these tax bodies recovering this lost revenue while attempting to be competitive and attracting residents and jobs?
It still goes back to that tax. I can't believe that the 15 Republicans, Terry included, on their tax would do that and knowingly sign a bill that included all of those additional things they knew about. We didn't know about it when it was signed. We just thought, oh my gosh, we're going to pay taxes. Then all these little gifts were unwrapped, and we kept getting, oh well, Mount Vernon, too bad you don't have $250,000. Jefferson County, too bad you don't have $250,000. Oh, we changed the motor fuel. You also aren't getting $75,000 to fix your roads. All of the oil and chip roads that we have, even throughout the district, but throughout the county here, they're not going to be oil and chip long if they don't have that money. It's absolutely essential for us to maintain some semblance of order on our roads to have that money, and it's been taken away. We have to reform the way we are spending the money. We have no choice but to reform, and it means you're going to turn over every stone. You're going to find that little penny that's underneath that stone, and then you're going to turn over another stone. They choose not to do that. They choose to just fund their pensions. They choose to just keep going down the same path that's not working. They choose to just raise the taxes, have more people move out of Jefferson. 2,000 people have left Mount Vernon in the last 4 years. That's a fact, and many of those people have left because of the taxing. So I think that reform. We're spending the money in the wrong places. We need to find out where we can spend it correctly and return some of the money to the municipalities. They can't have it just jerked away. Where are they going to get it? There's no money here that they can spare to get more out there. It's the unfunded mandates they keep shoving down our throats. If you bring in tax and Terry's other unfunded favorite thing, the Senate bill 1947, that one seemed like it might be a good bill. I personally, maybe naively, thought that was funded in the first large tax increase. But no, we found out 2 weeks ago from the Department of Education that, oh, no, that's not funded. We need another $7.2 billion to fund the school bill. So they're doing smoke and mirrors. They're telling the school children, we're going to take care of it. We're going to fix the schools. Teachers, don't worry, you're going to make more money. Oh, but we don't have any money to do it. Another unfunded. It just amazes me. And the different townships and municipalities are the ones that are having to pay for it. And we can't do it. They should have thought that out before they did smoke and mirrors. That should have never even been brought up, much less voted on, much less passed. How do you do that? It's just wrong.
Okay. All right, last question. Currently, there's discussion of instituting a property tax freeze, knowing that at least 70% of the property taxes collected in Jefferson County, depending on the school district, but on average, freezing these rates could create major problems for the Jefferson County schools. This county already operates under PTEL, which limited growth of tax levies for all taxing bodies to 2.1% for this year and for the upcoming year. In the recent past, it was even lower than that. Based on this, what is your position on freezing property taxes, and what is your position on school funding?
That particular problem is going to become a greater problem as we increase the taxes on our homes. That's one of the most major purchases that anybody does is their home. If you're finished with your mortgage, you have your home for 30 years and you finished your mortgage, you don't own it still because you have your property taxes. And with those property taxes, many people look at that and go, I really can't afford to even stay here. My mortgage is done, but I'm still paying $7,000, $8,000, $10,000, $5,000, $3,000, whatever you're paying in the property taxes. If you have retired and you're on truly a limited income, you have a problem. Many of those people, if you talk to the people that are older, many will say, it's my obligation. I want to make sure that the kids get an education, etc. But the method that we're spending, the way we spend our money is just not right. We're not bringing the money back down to the schools. We're bailing out Chicago schools again. And with that, I'm not saying throughout Chicago. We realize that we should help all of our schools throughout the state. But when we get the short end of the stick, they're spending $18,000 up there. We spend half as much down here per student. There's got to be more fair and equitable method of bringing the money back down here. You have to go in and find out where you can get it. You can't keep taxing. Everybody's gone. If everybody leaves, someone's just going to have the responsibility of just, flip that light out. There's nobody in Illinois anymore. You can't do it. We've got to find ways to do it.
Okay. So last question would be, what's your signature issue in this campaign?
Business and workers, jobs and workers. I don't care if they're union jobs. I don't care if they're non-union jobs. I don't care what business you're in, small business, large business, mom and pop businesses. All of us are bearing a tax, a certain amount of tax that is getting to the point where we can't afford it. One quick tax that affects us in the winery. 22 years ago, if we made 10,000 gallons of wine, we paid $1,800 in taxes, use tax. It was, hey, you made wine, you're going to pay the state. Great. Well, about 7-8 years later, they changed that to 73 cent. So that same 10 grand turned into $7,300. $1,800 to $7,300. Well, now 4-5 years ago, it turned into a $1.33. So now that same 10,000 that used to cost us $1,800 is now costing us over $13,000. That's a hidden tax that businesses can't have, and there are other ones. Every physician, every insurance agent, everybody that's in business has a permit, a license. Those licenses have quadrupled, 10 times as much. You could figure out from 30-40 years ago what they used to be and what they are today. They have all of these little areas where they tax people, and it comes back to affect all of us. Those are issues that deal with business. They deal with employees because employees are going to be paid less if the employers have to pay more. On taxing, workman's comp is huge. 22% of many of your salaries are workman's comp. That's why many people will move. They go to Indiana. They go somewhere where the tax is only about 6%. They make more money. So it's business, workers, helping the state of Illinois so that we have a good, stable employment and good, stable employers.
Okay. Very good. Appreciate it.
There we go. That'll work.